This is the Oppo Reno 12FS, a new affordable phone in late 2024. Now, when it comes to buying a phone that costs less than £300 here in the UK, you might automatically be worried about how it looks and feels. You might be wondering what the durability is like, will it last? And will the features, software and camera and battery specs all be watered down to match the price? Well, this phone right here, the Oppo Reno 12FS, might just surprise you. So let's run through all the things that I just mentioned, and at the end, you let me know if you're impressed or not. So first impressions coming from someone who's tested so many phones over the years that I've lost count. The size is just right. It's not too thick, it's not too chunky, and it's not so light that it feels cheap. The frame and the back panel are made from plastic, but could easily be mistaken for glass and metal, and you'd only really notice the difference if you scratch the surface by accident with some kind of sharp object. The edges are flat and the corners are rounded just like an iPhone. The button placement is identical to Samsung's layout, with the power button and volume rocker on the right side and the left side completely blank. And surprisingly, the Reno 12FS does have stereo speakers, with one speaker at the top where the earpiece is and the second along the bottom, and they actually sound very good for such an affordable phone. Now, in regards to durability, the Reno 12S does have an official IP64 water and dust rating, so a bit of rain won't cause it any damage. And inside, the phone has a unique design, which Oppo calls its all-around armor. So this phone literally has been designed from the inside out to absorb impacts. It's got this kind of cushion framework in there, so it will be able to easily survive a few drops. And here's something that was a pleasant surprise. It has a dual SIM tray, and it is a hybrid SIM tray. So this means you can expand the onboard memory with an SD card, which is a feature that pretty much no flagships offer these days. So that's an instant win for the Reno 12FS, and it does have a few more tricks up its sleeve that might impress you, so stick around for that. There are a few color options available. In the UK, there's a green, which is a kind of frosted matte finish, and the one that I have here is the amber orange version. And this one has this kind of wavy pattern and a color gradient on the back, and it definitely doesn't look cheap in my opinion. The camera array adds to this, as it's been modeled on Oppo's flagship phones. They call this the Cosmos ring design. And something that caught me off guard when I first saw this phone is around that Cosmos ring, there's a built-in notification light, and the colors and when this shows can be customized within the software, and I'll show you that in a moment. Now, arguably the most important aspect of any phone, the display. The Reno 12FS uses an optical in-display fingerprint reader, which is really fast and very secure. And this display is actually much better than I was expecting. It's a 6.67 inch 120Hz OLED, which can actually reduce speeds down to 60Hz to save power. And it has a full HD plus resolution, 394 pixels per inch. And the local peak brightness here is 2100 nits, which could be considered flagship level. It can support 100% of the DCI-P3 color gamut. And if you're unfamiliar with display specs, just know this: all of these specs that I've just mentioned are very impressive for a budget phone. But it is worth noting the screen to body ratio isn't quite flagship level, and this is quite normal for affordable phones. The Reno 12FS has a 92.2% screen to body ratio, so the bezels all around are slightly wider than what you would get on a more expensive phone, and the lower edge is noticeably larger, and this is typically where the screen connects to the motherboard. That's why it's slightly thicker down there. But again, this is pretty standard at this price point. Now, what about the cameras? Since Oppo has equipped the 12FS with such a nice display, they must have cut costs somewhere, and they have, but maybe not so much on the main camera and the selfie camera. The Reno 12FS has a triple camera setup, with the primary camera having a 50 megapixel sensor and lenses that offer an f1.8 aperture equivalent. And for comparison, you're seeing some photo samples here side by side with an Android phone that costs 4 times the price. So let me know what kind of differences you're noticing here. The ultra wide camera is 8 megapixels f2.2, and it's not bad for the money, but it's definitely not the best camera that this phone has. The third camera is a 2 megapixel macro for those close-up shots, f2.4, and it's okay. Now, the selfie camera is impressive. It uses a 32 megapixel sensor and is pretty good in most lighting conditions. So it's pretty clear to me that Oppo's focus here is the primary camera and the selfie camera. And if you're not that bothered about ultra wide and really close up shots, then you'll be more than happy with the camera quality you get here from that 50 megapixel shooter and the 32 megapixel camera on the front. Now, the software. The Oppo Reno 12FS is running on Android 14, so the user interface will be familiar to anyone anyone who's used a Samsung or any other Android device in recent years, and you do get up to 50 months of support for this software on this phone. And as I mentioned before, you can fully customize that ambient light ring on the back, which is definitely one of my favorite design features here. It's also got some fun AI tricks with more to come, but right now you can use the AI eraser for removing photo bombers and distractions in photographs, and of course you can set up Google's Gemini as your default assistant. The processor used on this phone is a mid-tier chip from MediaTek. It's the Dimensity 6300. It's a 6nm chip, and it's got 12 gigs of DDR4X RAM to back it up. So that's not the latest is 5X, but it's still a good amount, and it's certainly going to be fast enough for most people. And the built-in storage is 512 gigs, which is an insane amount for a budget phone. Overall, the performance you get from the 12FS for daily tasks is perfect, and realistically you'd only manage to get this phone to stutter and stumble when pushing it to its limits with some very graphically demanding gaming. But with that said, you can easily enjoy gaming on the Reno 12FS with lower graphic settings, and do keep in mind it is Full HD Plus, so you will never be able to push it to the extreme due to that factor. And the battery life here is awesome. You get a 5000 milliamp cell, which is definitely flagship level, and the charging speeds are up to 45 watts, which can also be considered flagship level when compared to the latest iPhone and latest Samsung Galaxy phones. And you can get this phone from 0 to 100% battery in around 70 minutes with the correct charger. And unfortunately, just like the flagships, there is no charger in the box with this one here in the UK. So that's a little additional cost you might have to factor in, unless you've already got a 45 watt charger. So if you were to compare this phone to another phone that costs 2, 3 or 4 times the price, here are the things you need to consider. That Full HD Plus OLED display is fast and it's bright and will certainly be good enough for most people. However, it is an 8-bit panel. Most flagship phones have at least a 10-bit panel these days, and while the refresh rates are flagship speeds at 120 Hz, it isn't an LTPO display, so it can't slow all the way down to just 1 Hz to save power. But the fact that it is a Full HD Plus panel and that the 12FS does have a large battery, this kind of makes up for that. And while the exterior build materials are mainly plastic, it still looks and feels premium, and it does have some significant advantages regarding shock absorption with its reinforced structure inside. However, you don't get Qi wireless charging on this particular Oppo phone, but again, that 45 watt charging speed via the wire may make up for this. It really depends on how important wireless charging is to you. So let me know in the comments, is it important to you? The main cameras front and back are a very good spec, but if ultra wide, close-up macros and long range photography is important to you, that's definitely something you'd have to pay more for, and Oppo do have more premium phones that specialize more in these areas. And whilst you don't get the latest and greatest versions of RAM and ROM, you do get a massive amount of both, and so much storage as standard that you'll probably never ever run out. But if you do, then you've always got that additional SD card slot available to you, which is something you just don't get on flagship phones. So with all things considered, if you need an affordable phone that's a good all-rounder, the 12FS is built to last, and the software will also stay up to date for at least 50 months from when it was released. You also get great AI features with still more to come with future updates, and the processing power is definitely enough for the average consumer. And the main cameras that you'll use the most on the back and the front aren't bad at all. So let me know, are you impressed with the Reno 12FS at the launch day price of $299? And if there's any questions that I didn't answer in this video, please let me know in the comments and I will do my best to answer those. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate a little thumbs up. And if you just subscribed, you're now one of the finest subscribers known to man, and I will see you in the next one. Don't be late.